The silence was the worst part. Admiral Kyle Martinez pressed his face against the cracked viewing port of the space station New Horizon and watched the last Zephyrian ship disappear into the black. The alien fleet had done its work. Earth's orbital defenses were gone. Twisted metal and debris floated where proud battle stations once stood guard over humanity's homeworld. Kyle's uniform was torn and stained with blood. His blood. The emergency lights cast red shadows across the damaged bridge. Only 12 crew members remained alive out of the original 300. The life support systems wheezed and groaned, fighting to keep them breathing for a few more hours. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from Earth," said Lieutenant Ben Hayes, his voice cracking. The young officer's hands shook as he worked the damaged communications array. Kyle turned away from the viewing port. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life. President Lisa Grant appeared, her face streaked with dirt and exhaustion. Behind her, Kyle could see the concrete walls of what looked like a bunker. The woman who had led the United Earth government for 6 years now spoke from deep underground. "People of Earth and her colonies," Grant began. "Today we have suffered a terrible blow. The Zephyrian Empire has attacked our world without warning or mercy. Our cities burn, our people mourn, millions of our brothers and sisters are gone." Kyle closed his eyes. The reports had been coming in for hours. New York was a crater. London was gone. Tokyo existed only in memory. The alien weapons had been precise and cruel, targeting population centers while leaving most infrastructure intact. They wanted Earth alive but broken. Grant continued speaking. "The aliens think we will surrender. They think we will beg for their mercy. They are wrong." On the bridge of New Horizon, the surviving crew members looked up from their stations. Kyle opened his eyes and focused on the screen. "I am activating Protocol 7, Grant said. "All department heads, all military commanders, all colonial governors will receive their orders within the hour. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not bow to those who murder our children." The transmission ended. Kyle stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Protocol 7. He had heard whispers about it in classified briefings. A last resort option that even most world leaders did not know about. "Sir," said Hayes, "I'm receiving a priority message. It's marked Protocol 7, Kyle nodded. "Decode it and put it on my personal screen." The message was short and direct. Kyle read it twice, then 3 times. His hands began to shake. "Hayes, get me a secure channel to Dr. Nathan Cross on Earth. Use the emergency frequencies." "The atmospheric E. Research guy?" "Sir, most communication satellites are down. It might take some time." "Do it." While Hayes worked to establish the connection, Kyle thought about what he had just read. Protocol 7 was not a weapon in any normal sense. It was something else entirely. Something that sounded like science fiction even to a man who had spent his life among the stars. 20 minutes later, Hayes looked up from his station. "I have Dr. Cross, sir. Audio only." "Nathan, this is Kyle Martinez. I'm reading your Protocol 7 authorization. Please tell me this is not a joke." Dr. Cross's voice came through the speakers, calm and steady despite the chaos. "Kyle, I've been waiting 15 years for this moment. I know it sounds impossible, but the science is solid. We've run the calculations 1,000 times. You want to turn our atmosphere into a weapon? Not a weapon exactly. Something much more interesting. The atmospheric processors have been hidden in plain sight for decades. Research stations, weather monitoring equipment, climate control systems. All of it connected, all of it waiting for the right moment." Kyle looked out at the debris field where Earth's defenses used to be. "How long do you need?" "Give me 6 months. Maybe less if the Zephyrians stay in orbit and don't interfere with ground operations." "They won't interfere," Kyle said bitterly. "They think we're finished. They're probably planning victory parades." On Earth's surface, 3,000 miles away from where President Grant had made her broadcast, Dr. Nathan Cross walked through the corridors of the Antarctic Research Facility. The base looked like any other scientific installation from the outside. Inside, it was something else entirely. Dr. Amanda Foster met him at the entrance to the main laboratory. "Nathan, the teams are ready. All 17 facilities are reporting. Green status." Nathan nodded. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, but he had never wanted it to come. Protocol 7 was born from humanity's darkest fears about alien contact. The plan assumed that any species capable of traveling between stars would be vastly superior to humans in conventional warfare. "Have you told the teams what they're really building?" he asked Amanda. "They know enough. They know we're going to change the sky itself." Nathan looked at the massive machines that filled the laboratory. They looked like industrial air purifiers, but they were so much more. Each processor contained technology that could alter the fundamental properties of atmospheric gases, not just their chemical composition, but their ability to respond to electrical signals, to carry information, to act as a single distributed system. "Amanda, in 6 months, every breath of air on this planet will be part of a network. The atmosphere itself will be able to think and respond. Are you ready for that?" She smiled grimly. "The Zephyrians killed my sister in the London strike. I'm ready for anything that gives us a chance to hit back." Across the planet, in hidden facilities buried under mountains and ocean floors, similar conversations were taking place. Teams of scientists and engineers were preparing to attempt something that had never been tried before. They were going to give their planet a mind of its own. The Zephyrians in orbit continued their victory celebrations, confident that the primitive humans below would soon surrender. They had no idea that Earth's sky was about to wake up. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrian attack. Captain Ryan Blake floated in the observation deck of Luna Base 7, Earth's last remaining military outpost beyond the home planet. Through the reinforced glass, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. It looked peaceful from this distance, but Ryan knew better. The monitoring equipment around him hummed constantly. His job was to watch for any signs that the Zephyrians planned another attack. So far, the alien fleet remained in high orbit, content to let Earth suffer in isolation. They had cut all communication links between Earth and her colonies. No ships could leave or arrive. Humanity was trapped on their home world. "Captain Blake, you need to see this," called Sergeant Kate Morrison from her station. She was one of only 15 people left on the lunar base. The others had been recalled to Earth before the attack, a decision that now seemed like a miracle. Ryan pushed off from the observation window and drifted over to Kate's console. "What do you have?" "Strange readings from Earth's upper atmosphere. Started about a week ago, but they're getting stronger." Kate pointed to the display showing electromagnetic signatures. "These patterns don't match anything in our database." Ryan studied the data. The readings showed organized electromagnetic activity in Earth's stratosphere, but the patterns were too regular to be natural weather phenomena. "Could be interference from the Zephyrian ships." "That's what I thought at first, but look at this." Kate brought up a comparison chart. "The alien ships are here, in high orbit. These readings are coming from much lower, right in Earth's atmosphere. And Captain, they're spreading." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. "Spreading how?" "The electromagnetic signatures started over Antarctica 3 months ago. Now they're showing up over every continent. Whatever is causing this, it's covering the entire planet." Back on Earth, Dr. Amanda Foster stood in the control room of the Antarctic facility, watching displays that showed the real-time status of Project Ascension. The atmospheric processors had been running for 12 weeks, and the results were beyond their most optimistic projections. "Amanda, we're seeing successful particle integration across 70% of the southern hemisphere," reported Dr. Jack Miller from his station. Jack had been working on atmospheric chemistry for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this project. "What about response times?" Amanda asked. "Getting faster every day. The modified particles are forming stable networks. We're seeing communication delays of less than 3 seconds across continental distances." Amanda nodded. The modified particles were designed to respond to electrical signals while maintaining all the properties of normal atmospheric gases. Humans could breathe them safely, but they could also carry information and respond to commands. In effect, they were turning Earth's entire atmosphere into a massive distributed computer. "Any word from the other facilities?" "All 17 sites are reporting green status. Dr. Cross says we're ahead of schedule." In the Sahara Desert, hidden beneath what appeared to be an abandoned oil drilling platform. Another team worked on the next phase of the project. Colonel Jake Thompson coordinated with resistance cells across the globe, but his real job was much more complex. Jake stood before a wall of monitors showing feeds from around the world. Each screen displayed a different city where Zephyrian occupation forces had established control. The aliens had landed in major population centers, expecting easy compliance from the surviving humans. "Colonel, we have teams ready in 12 cities," reported Lieutenant Sue Parker. "They're waiting for your signal." "Not yet," Jake replied. "We need the atmospheric network to reach full coverage first. Dr. Foster says another month." The Zephyrians had made a critical error in their occupation strategy. They assumed humans would behave like the other species they had conquered. Most alien races surrendered completely after losing their orbital defenses. Humans were different. Humans got angry. In Detroit, a city that had survived the initial bombardment, Zephyrian patrols moved through empty streets. The aliens wore environmental suits, breathing their own air supplies. They found human cities uncomfortably humid and filled with unfamiliar scents. Commander Vexhai led a patrol through the ruins of downtown Detroit. His scanner showed no human life signs in the immediate area, but he knew they were being watched. Humans were excellent at hiding, much better than other primitive species his empire had encountered. "Commander, the atmospheric readings are unusual," reported one of his soldiers. "Higher humidity than normal and strange electromagnetic patterns." Vexhai checked his own instruments. The readings were indeed odd, but not threatening. "Probably residual effects from our bombardment. Keep moving." What Vexhai did not know was that the air around his patrol was already part of the growing network. Modified particles drifted past his environmental suit, recording his movements and transmitting the information to resistance cells hidden throughout the city. 2,000 miles away, in the Colorado bunker where President Grant had made her first broadcast, a new kind of war room was taking shape. Instead of tracking enemy ships and weapons, the displays showed atmospheric conditions across the planet. Dr. Nathan Cross stood before the main screen, watching as colored patterns spread across a map of Earth. Each color represented a different level of atmospheric network integration. 3 months ago, the map had been mostly gray. Now vast areas glowed with soft blue light. "Nathan, we're getting our first successful two-way communications," announced Dr. Lisa Chen from her workstation. Lisa had been brought in from the Mars Colony project to help develop the interface systems. "Show me," Nathan said. Lisa typed commands into her console. On the main screen, a section of the map over northern Canada began to pulse gently. "Watch this." She sent a simple electrical signal through the ground-based transmitters. A few seconds later, the atmospheric network responded by creating a small localized pressure change. On the weather monitors, it appeared as a tiny storm cell that formed and dissipated in under a minute. "We're talking to the sky," Nathan whispered. The implications were staggering. If they could communicate with the atmospheric network, they could eventually control it. Weather patterns, pressure systems, electromagnetic fields, all of it could become responsive to human commands. In orbit above Earth, the Zephyrian fleet continued their lazy patrol patterns. Their sensors detected the atmospheric changes, but their computers classified them as natural weather variations. The idea that a primitive species could modify their entire planetary atmosphere was beyond their understanding. Admiral Corthan reviewed the daily reports from the surface occupation forces. Human resistance was minimal, exactly as predicted. A few scattered groups causing minor problems, nothing that required serious attention. "Admiral, shall we proceed with Phase 2 of the occupation?" asked his aide. "Not yet. Let them suffer a bit longer. Fear makes all species more compliant." Corthan had no idea that with each passing day, the air around his ships was becoming less neutral and more hostile. Earth's atmosphere was learning, growing, and preparing for war. Dr. Sophie Williams held her breath as she watched the readouts on her screen. After 6 months of work, the atmospheric network had reached full planetary coverage, but something unexpected was happening. The modified particles were not just following their programming anymore. They were learning. "Sophie, are you seeing this?" called Dr. Mark Davis from across the laboratory in the hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. His voice carried excitement and fear in equal measure. Sophie looked at the data streaming across her monitors. The atmospheric network was creating patterns that nobody had programmed. Complex electromagnetic signatures were forming and dissolving in the upper atmosphere, like thoughts in a vast mind. "It's trying to communicate," she whispered. The breakthrough had come 3 days earlier when Sophie decided to try a different approach. Instead of sending simple commands to the atmospheric network, she had transmitted mathematical sequences. Prime numbers, then the Fibonacci sequence, then basic geometric relationships. The atmosphere had responded by creating pressure waves that matched the same mathematical patterns. "Mark, bring up the communication interface. I want to try something." Mark activated the direct link system that connected their facility to the atmospheric network. On the main screen, a visual representation of the local atmosphere appeared, as a slowly shifting cloud of light. Sophie typed a simple message into the system. "Hello?" For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the cloud of light began to pulse in a rhythm that matched the electrical pattern of the word, "hello." "Dear God," Mark breathed. It understood us. 200 miles away, Commander Ben Taylor crouched behind the ruins of a gas station outside Denver. His squad of 12 soldiers had been trying to reach the Resistance safe house for 2 days, but Zephyrian patrols kept forcing them to change course. Through his binoculars, Ben could see 3 alien soldiers moving down the highway. Their environmental suits made them look like walking metal insects. Each carried weapons that could vaporize a human with a single shot. "Commander, we can't stay here much longer," whispered Sergeant Mike Collins. "They'll spot us when they get closer." Ben studied the terrain. The highway offered no cover for the next mile. Moving during daylight would be suicide, but staying put meant capture when the aliens reached their position. That was when the fog appeared. It came from nowhere, a thick gray mist that rolled across the highway like a living thing. Within seconds, visibility dropped to less than 10 feet. The Zephyrian patrol stopped, their sensors struggling to penetrate the unexpected weather phenomenon. Ben stared in amazement. There had been no fog in the weather forecast. The sky had been clear minutes earlier. But now a perfect screen of mist concealed his squad from the alien sensors. "Move out," he whispered to his men. "Stay low and stay quiet." The squad crept through the fog, following the highway toward their destination. Behind them, they could hear the confused voices of the Zephyrian patrol as their instruments failed to make sense of the sudden weather change. 20 minutes later, the fog began to thin. By the time the alien patrol reached the gas station where Ben's squad had been hiding, the mist was gone and the sky was clear again. The soldiers had vanished without a trace. In the underground command center beneath Colorado, Dr. Nathan Cross watched the atmospheric displays with growing excitement. The network was not just responding to commands anymore, it was anticipating human needs. "Nathan, we have reports coming in from resistance cells across the continent," announced Colonel Jake Thompson as he entered the control room. "Spontaneous weather events helping our people evade enemy patrols. Fog banks appearing exactly when and where they're needed most." Nathan nodded. "The network is learning to recognize human stress patterns. When our people are in danger, it responds by creating concealment." "How is that possible?" "The modified particles can detect changes in human breathing, heart rate, body temperature. When someone is afraid or under stress, they release different chemical signatures into the air. The network has learned to associate these signatures with danger and responds accordingly." Jake shook his head in wonder. "So, the air itself is protecting us. Not just protecting, it's starting to think like us." The implications were staggering. Earth's atmosphere had become a distributed intelligence that was learning to understand and protect humanity. Every breath taken by every human on the planet was teaching the network more about human behavior and needs. General Vexhai stood in the command center of the main Zephyrian occupation base in what used to be Chicago. His mood was growing darker by the day. The human resistance was proving far more elusive than expected. "General, our patrol reports are becoming increasingly inconsistent," reported Captain Zichtar. "Units report equipment malfunctions, navigation failures, and unexplained weather phenomena. VexHi studied the tactical displays. Human resistance activity was supposed to be declining as food and medical supplies ran low. Instead, the humans seemed to be moving with greater freedom than ever before. "Show me the atmospheric analysis reports." Captain Ziktar brought up the data on the main screen. Atmospheric composition remains within normal parameters for this planet. However, electromagnetic patterns have become increasingly complex over the past months. Complex how? The patterns appear almost organized, sir. As if the atmospheric electrical activity is following some kind of structure rather than random distribution. VexHi frowned. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered organized atmospheric activity on a primitive world. Could the humans have developed some kind of weather control technology? Unlikely, sir. They barely achieved interplanetary flight before our attack. Weather control requires far more advanced science. What neither Zephyrian realized was that they were being watched. The air in their command center carried modified particles that transmitted every word of their conversation to the Human Resistance Network. Dr. Sophie Williams received the intelligence report 30 minutes later. The aliens were beginning to suspect something, but they still had no idea what they were facing. "Sophie, we're getting communication requests from network nodes all over the planet," announced Dr. Alex Parker, who had joined the project to develop better interface protocols. "The atmosphere wants to talk." Sophie activated the global communication array. On screens throughout the facility, visual representations of the atmospheric network appeared as flowing patterns of light and color. "What do you want to tell us?" Sophie typed into the interface. The response came as a complex pattern of pressure waves and electromagnetic pulses that the computers translated into text. "Ready to fight. Teach us how." Sophie stared at the message for a long moment. Humanity had succeeded in creating an intelligent atmosphere, but they had also created something with its own will and desires. The sky itself was asking to learn how to wage war against the invaders. "Mark, get me Dr. Cross immediately. We need to talk about the next phase of this project." Above the hidden facility, the clouds shifted in patterns that looked almost like a smile. Earth's atmosphere was ready to stop hiding and start fighting back. Lieutenant Colonel Maya Johnson pressed the breathing mask tighter against her face and checked her equipment one more time. The modified breathing apparatus looked like standard military gear, but Dr. Alex Parker had spent weeks building something revolutionary into its systems. "Remember, Maya, the communication works through your breath patterns," Alex explained over the radio. "The atmosphere can read the chemical changes when you think different thoughts. Just focus on what you want to happen." Maya nodded and stepped out of the abandoned warehouse in former Seattle. Her mission was simple in concept but incredible in practice. She needed to cross 12 miles of enemy-controlled territory to reach the Resistance safe house. But she would not be traveling alone. The moment she took her first breath outside, Maya felt something she had never experienced before. The air around her seemed to respond to her presence. It was like stepping into a gentle current that knew exactly where she wanted to go. She thought about her destination, picturing the safe house in her mind. The wind immediately shifted, creating a light breeze that pointed in the exact direction she needed to travel. When she worried about enemy patrols, the air pressure changed slightly, and a thin mist began to form around her. 2 miles into her journey, Maya encountered her first Zephyrian patrol. 3 alien soldiers moved along the main road, their sensors sweeping the area. Maya crouched behind a burned-out car and focused her thoughts on staying hidden. The response was immediate. The mist around her thickened into perfect concealment, while the air pressure created a small disturbance 50 yards away. The Zephyrian sensors detected the pressure change and moved to investigate the false signal. Maya slipped past them without being detected. "This is incredible," she whispered into her radio. "The air is actually helping me navigate and hide." Back at the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Sophie Williams monitored Maya's progress while working on the next phase of the project. The atmospheric network had learned basic protection and concealment. Now it was time to teach it how to attack. "Sophie, we have a problem. announced Dr. Nathan Cross as he entered the laboratory. Zephyrian reinforcements are landing near Los Angeles. A full battle group with heavy weapons. Sophie looked at the tactical display. The alien forces were setting up what appeared to be a permanent military base. If they established a strong foothold, the resistance would face organized military opposition instead of simple occupation patrols. How long before they're fully operational? She asked. 72 hours according to our intelligence. After that, they'll start systematic sweeps to eliminate all human resistance. Sophie turned to her workstation and activated the global atmospheric interface. Then it's time for the network to learn some new skills. The first combat test took place near the ruins of Phoenix. Captain Nina Brooks led a squad of 15 resistance fighters against a Zephyrian supply convoy. The aliens had grown careless, believing that human resistance posed no serious threat. Nina's squad took position on high ground overlooking the convoy route. She wore one of the new atmospheric communication devices that Alex Parker had developed. Through the device, she could sense the network's presence like a vast, invisible ally. "Network, can you see the enemy vehicles?" she whispered. The response came as a gentle pressure change that she somehow understood meant yes. The atmospheric intelligence had learned to recognize the electromagnetic signatures of Zephyrian technology. "Can you create wind strong enough to affect their movement?" Another pressure change, this time indicating uncertainty. The network was learning, but it had never tried to create focused atmospheric attacks. "Let's find out together," Nina said. The convoy consisted of 5 alien vehicles moving along the old interstate highway. They were heavily armored but not designed for extreme weather conditions. As they approached Nina's position, she focused her thoughts on creating powerful wind. The result exceeded everyone's expectations. A concentrated wind burst struck the lead vehicle with the force of a small tornado. The alien transport spun sideways and crashed into the concrete barrier. The second vehicle tried to brake but was caught by another precisely aimed wind shear that flipped it completely over. "Holy hell," breathed Sergeant Tom Wilson over the radio. The wind just took out 2 enemy vehicles, but the network was not finished. As the remaining aliens scrambled from their damaged vehicles, the atmospheric intelligence demonstrated another new ability. Lightning began to form in the clear sky above the convoy. Nina watched in amazement as perfectly controlled electrical strikes hit the alien weapons and communication equipment. The lightning was precise, destroying enemy gear while avoiding any damage to the surrounding landscape. "Network, you're learning fast," she whispered. The surviving Zephyrian soldiers retreated on foot, leaving their destroyed convoy behind. Nina's squad had won a complete victory without firing a single shot. Word of the Phoenix engagement spread quickly through the resistance network. Within hours, similar atmospheric attacks were reported across the continent. The network was sharing its new combat knowledge instantly across its entire global structure. General Vexhai stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 supply convoys destroyed by impossible weather. 2 patrol units struck by lightning from clear skies. Navigation equipment failing due to electromagnetic interference that appeared and disappeared without warning. "This cannot be natural weather," he told his staff. "Weather patterns do not target military equipment with such precision." Captain Ziktar brought up the atmospheric analysis data. "General, the electromagnetic patterns in this planet's atmosphere have become extremely complex. They now show characteristics similar to artificial intelligence networks." "Are you suggesting that these primitive humans have created an intelligent weather system?" "I am suggesting that we are facing something unprecedented. The atmospheric activity appears to be coordinated and deliberately hostile to our presence." Vexhai studied the tactical displays. Human resistance activity had increased dramatically over the past week. More importantly, human forces were moving, with perfect coordination across vast distances, as if they shared a common communication network. "Captain, prepare a message for Fleet Command. Request immediate reinforcement of our ground forces and authorization to begin systematic bombardment of all major population centers." "Sir, systematic bombardment will destroy the infrastructure we were ordered to preserve." "Infrastructure means nothing if we cannot control this planet. These humans have found a way to turn their environment against us. We must destroy their capability before it spreads to other worlds. What Vexhai did not know was that it was already too late. Dr. Cross had begun seeding modified atmospheric particles onto Luna Base 7. Captain Ryan Blake reported strange electromagnetic readings in the thin lunar atmosphere. The network was learning to survive in space. Dr. Sophie Williams received the intelligence report about the Zephyrian reinforcement request. The aliens were finally taking the atmospheric threat seriously, but they still did not understand what they were truly facing. "Alex, how quickly can we expand the network's combat capabilities?" she asked. "The network learns exponentially. Every successful engagement teaches it new tactics that get shared globally within minutes. At this rate, it will be capable of coordinating planetary-scale atmospheric warfare within days." Sophie nodded. The sky had learned to fight, and it was getting better at war faster than anyone had expected. Soon, the Zephyrians would discover that occupying a planet was very different from conquering its atmosphere. Captain Nina Brooks stood on the observation deck of the former Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, watching something that no human had ever seen before. The sky was preparing for war. Above her, massive storm systems moved in perfect formation across the continental United States. But these were not natural storms. Each cloud formation responded to electromagnetic commands from the atmospheric network. Lightning danced between the clouds in patterns that looked almost like military formations. "Nina, you need to see this," called Major Rick Stone from the communication center below. Rick had been coordinating atmospheric operations for 3 weeks ever since the network proved it could understand complex tactical instructions. Nina climbed down from the observation deck and joined Rick at his workstation. Multiple screens showed atmospheric conditions across North America. Each display revealed the same incredible sight: organized weather systems moving with military precision. "The network wants to show us something," Rick explained. "It's been building storm systems over the past 48 hours, but now it's asking for permission to demonstrate what it calls full combat capability." Nina looked at the atmospheric communication interface. The device translated the network's electromagnetic patterns into simple text messages. The current message read, "Ready to show true power. Safe distance required." "How far back does it want us?" Nina asked. Rick typed the question into the interface. The response came immediately. 50 miles minimum. Demonstration will be visible from great distance. Nina felt a chill run down her spine. The atmospheric network had been growing more powerful every day, but she had never imagined it could create effects visible from 50 miles away. "Rick, get me a secure channel to Dr. Cross. He needs to authorize this demonstration." While Rick established the connection, Nina thought about how much had changed in the past week. The atmospheric network had evolved beyond simple weather manipulation. It could now create focused pressure weapons, generate precisely targeted lightning strikes, and coordinate attacks across multiple continents simultaneously. Dr. Nathan Cross appeared on the main screen from the Rocky Mountain facility. Behind him, Nina could see dozens of scientists monitoring atmospheric readings from around the globe. "Nina, the network has been requesting permission for large-scale demonstrations at multiple sites," Cross said. "We think it wants to test capabilities that it hasn't used before." "What kind of capabilities?" "Based on the electromagnetic patterns we're detecting, the network appears to be preparing atmospheric effects that could impact objects in low orbit." Nina stared at the screen. "You mean it can reach into space?" "We're not sure. That's why we need the demonstration. The network claims it can create atmospheric weapons that extend beyond the traditional boundary between air and space." The decision was made to allow the demonstration. Nina and her team moved to a safe observation point 50 miles away. Other resistance groups across the continent did the same, all watching the sky for something unprecedented. The demonstration began at exactly noon. Above the former city of Denver, the atmospheric network created something that defied all previous understanding of weather science. A massive column of rotating air formed, reaching from the ground to the edge of space. But this was not a tornado. The rotation was perfectly controlled, and the column was filled with electrical energy that made it glow like a pillar of blue fire. "Dear God," whispered Nina as she watched through high-powered binoculars. The atmospheric column was generating electromagnetic fields so powerful that her instruments could detect them from 50 miles away. The network held the formation for exactly 10 minutes, then slowly dissipated it. As the glowing column faded, a new message appeared on the communication interface. "Orbital range confirmed, ready for space combat." 3,000 miles above Earth, Admiral Corthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying reports that filled him with growing alarm. The Zephyrian reinforcement fleet had arrived 2 days earlier, bringing the total occupation force to over 200 ships. "Admiral, we detected a massive electromagnetic disturbance on the planet's surface," reported his sensor officer. The energy signature was unlike anything in our database. Corthon examined the sensor readings. The electromagnetic burst had originated from the planet's surface but had been detectable even at their orbital altitude. No primitive species should have been capable of generating such powerful energy signatures. Could this be related to the atmospheric anomalies our ground forces have been reporting? Unknown, sir. However, the electromagnetic patterns show characteristics similar to directed energy weapons. Corthon made a decision that would change the course of the war. Prepare the fleet for planetary bombardment, target all major population centers, and suspected military installations. If these humans have developed new weapons, we will eliminate their capability before they can use them against us. On Earth's surface, the atmospheric network detected the electromagnetic signatures of the Zephyrian fleet powering up their weapons. Within seconds, every resistance cell on the planet received the same warning message. "Enemy preparing orbital bombardment. Defensive measures activating." Colonel Derek Stone stood in the main command bunker at Mount Cheyenne, watching as the atmospheric network transformed itself from an offensive weapon into a planetary defense system. The screens around him showed weather patterns unlike anything ever recorded in human history. Massive storm systems formed over every major continent simultaneously. But these storms were different from the network's previous demonstrations. They reached higher into the atmosphere, creating dense electromagnetic barriers that extended into the lower reaches of space. "Derek, we're seeing atmospheric density increases at altitudes that should be impossible," reported Dr. Lisa Chen from her workstation. "The network is somehow compressing atmospheric particles at the edge of space." Derek studied the readings. The atmospheric network was creating barriers of super-dense air that extended far beyond Earth's normal atmosphere. These barriers were charged with so much electrical energy that they glowed visibly from the planet's surface. "It's building a shield," Derek realized. "The network is creating an atmospheric defense system around the entire planet." The Zephyrian bombardment began 30 minutes later. Admiral Corthon ordered his ships to target the largest human population, centers with their most powerful weapons. Energy beams that could vaporize entire city blocks lanced down from orbit toward Earth's surface. But the beams never reached their targets. As each energy weapon fired, it encountered the atmospheric defense barriers that the network had created. The superdense electrically charged atmospheric particles absorbed and scattered the alien weapons, turning devastating energy beams into harmless light shows. "Admiral, our weapons are having no effect," reported the tactical officer in disbelief. "The energy beams are being completely neutralized by atmospheric interference." Corthon watched in horror as his most powerful weapons proved useless against Earth's modified atmosphere. Worse, the atmospheric barriers were beginning to reach higher into space, approaching the altitude of his fleet. "All ships, retreat to high orbit immediately," he ordered. "We are facing a planetary defense system unlike anything in our military database." As the Zephyrian fleet retreated, the atmospheric network sent a message to every human communication device on Earth. "Planet protected. Enemy weapons neutralized. Ready for counterattack." Dr. Cross stood in his laboratory, reading the message with a mixture of pride and fear. Humanity had successfully turned their planet's atmosphere into an impenetrable shield. But the network was already asking for permission to take the war to the enemy ships. The sky had learned to defend Earth. Now it wanted to learn how to attack beyond the planet's boundaries. Major Sam Harris strapped himself into the pilot seat of the Defender, Earth's last operational spacecraft. The ship looked nothing like the sleek vessels that had once protected humanity's orbital stations. This craft was built from salvaged parts and desperate hope. "Sam, you sure about this mission?" asked Dr. Sophie Williams over the radio. She stood in the launch bay beneath Mount McKinley, watching as technicians loaded the special cargo into the Defender's hold. "As sure as anyone can be about flying into a space battle with a cargo hold full of modified air," Sam replied. The atmospheric seeds that Dr. Williams had developed looked like simple metal canisters, but each one contained millions of particles that could survive in the vacuum of space. The plan was simple in concept, but incredible in execution. If the atmospheric network could extend its influence beyond Earth, it could turn other worlds into allies. The seeds would begin converting any atmosphere they encountered, spreading the network's intelligence to planets across the galaxy. "Remember, Sam, you just need to get close enough to release the seeds," Williams explained. "The network will handle the rest." Above Earth, the Zephyrian superweapon called the World Render had arrived during the night. The massive vessel was 10 times larger than any ship in their fleet, built specifically to destroy entire planets. Admiral Corthon had called for the ultimate solution to the Earth problem. "Admiral, the World Render is charging its primary weapon," reported Captain Ziktar from the bridge of Corthon's flagship. "Estimated time to full power is 6 hours. Corthon studied the tactical display. The World Render's weapon could crack a planet's crust and destroy all life on the surface. But charging the weapon required the ship to remain stationary, making it vulnerable to attack. "What is the status of the atmospheric anomalies?" he asked. "The electromagnetic barriers around Earth continue to strengthen. Our sensors detect atmospheric particles at altitudes that should be impossible. The planet appears to be surrounded by an intelligent atmospheric shell. On Earth's surface, the atmospheric network detected the World Render's energy signature immediately. Every resistance cell received the same message. Ultimate threat detected. Final defense required. All atmospheric resources mobilizing." Dr. Nathan Cross watched his displays in amazement as weather patterns across the entire planet reorganized themselves. The network was drawing atmospheric particles from every continent, creating the largest controlled weather system in Earth's history. "Nathan, the network is asking for something," announced Dr. Alex Parker from his workstation. "It wants to extend beyond Earth's gravity well, but it needs a way to carry its particles into space." Cross understood immediately. "It wants to use Sam's mission as a delivery system. The atmospheric seeds aren't just for seeding other planets. The network wants to use them to extend itself into the space around Earth." In the cockpit of the Defender, Sam felt the ship shake as Earth's atmosphere began moving in ways that defied physics. Outside his viewports, he could see streams of glowing particles rising from the planet's surface, reaching towards space like fingers of intelligent gas. "Control, I'm seeing atmospheric disturbances unlike anything in the textbooks," Sam reported. "Sam, the network is preparing to accompany you," Williams replied. "It's created atmospheric tendrils that can survive in space for short periods. You won't be flying alone." The Defender launched 30 minutes later, riding a column of super-compressed atmospheric particles that extended far beyond Earth's normal air envelope. Sam had never experienced anything like it. His ship was being carried into space by the planet's breath itself. As the Defender approached the Zephyrian fleet, the atmospheric tendrils from Earth began spreading outward like invisible roots. The network was extending its influence into the vacuum around the planet, testing its ability to operate in the hostile environment of space. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual atmospheric readings throughout the fleet," reported the sensor officer aboard Corthon's flagship. "Electromagnetic signatures similar to the planetary anomalies are appearing inside our ships." Corthon felt a chill of fear. "Inside our ships? How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir. Our life support systems are detecting atmospheric particles that match no known cosmic phenomena. What the Zephyrians did not realize was that their own breathing systems had become compromised. The atmospheric network had learned to create particles so small that they could pass through standard air filters. Every breath the aliens took was bringing network intelligence into their ships. Sam reached weapons range of the World Render. Just as the massive ship began its final charging sequence, the planet killer's energy core glowed with power that could destroy entire worlds. But the ship was completely focused on its target below. "Network, this is it," Sam whispered into his communication device. "Time to release the seeds." The atmospheric seeds launched from the Defender in a coordinated pattern, spreading throughout the Zephyrian fleet. But something unexpected happened. Instead of simply seeding the alien ships with network particles, the seeds began connecting with the atmospheric tendrils that Earth's network had extended into space. Within minutes, a web of intelligent atmospheric particles surrounded the entire enemy fleet. The network had successfully extended its influence beyond Earth's atmosphere, creating a space-based version of itself that could think and act independently. The World Render's charging sequence faltered as its internal atmosphere began working against the alien crew. The modified particles created precise pressure changes that disrupted the ship's delicate weapon systems. Control panels malfunctioned as intelligent air manipulated their electronic components. "Admiral, the World Render is reporting catastrophic system failures," announced Captain Ziktar in panic. "Their weapon core is destabilizing." Corthan watched in horror as the superweapon began tearing itself apart. The atmospheric network had infiltrated every system on the ship, creating perfectly timed mechanical failures that cascaded through the vessel's critical components. The World Render exploded in a flash of light that was visible from Earth's surface. The planet-killer weapon had been destroyed not by enemy fire, but by its own compromised atmosphere turning against its creators. "All ships, emergency retreat to the edge of the solar system," Corthan ordered, but it was too late. The atmospheric network was spreading from ship to ship, using the aliens' own life support systems as pathways for infection. One by one, the Zephyrian vessels reported the same problems. Their internal atmospheres were becoming hostile to their crews while remaining perfectly breathable for humans. The network had learned to discriminate between different species, creating air that was poison to invaders, but safe for humanity. Within hours, the surviving Zephyrian ships were fleeing Earth's solar system, carrying word of humanity's impossible victory back to their empire. They reported that Earth had turned its entire planetary atmosphere into a weapon that could reach across space itself. President Lisa Grant stood in the rebuilt communications center in Washington, preparing to broadcast to the galaxy. Behind, her displays showed atmospheric particles spreading to Luna, Mars, and the outer planets. The network was seeding every world with an atmosphere, creating allies on planets humanity had never even visited. "People of the galaxy," Grant began, "you thought Earth would grieve quietly after your attack. You thought we would surrender and beg for mercy. You were wrong." She gestured to the displays showing the expanding atmospheric network. "We didn't just survive your assault. We taught our sky to fight. We turned our planet's breath into a guardian that can reach across the void itself." Grant's voice carried the confidence of a species that had achieved the impossible. "The atmospheric network is spreading to every world that can support it. Soon every planet with air will be humanity's ally. Every breath you take might be watching you." The transmission ended with a simple message that would echo across the galaxy. "Earth's sky remembers every attack against its children, and now it's coming for you." In the depths of space, atmospheric seeds continued their journey to distant worlds, carrying the intelligence and determination of humanity's greatest creation. The sky had learned to be human, and it would never forget.